welcome to Hypothetically Intentional, where we ask the question, what if we set intentions with everything we do? I'm your host, Michelle Albers, and today I have Shylla Webb of Inner Matter. Welcome, Shylla.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have this conversation on the mic. You and I have conversations often,
Uh-huh.
not as often as I like, perhaps, but
Likewise.
but when we do have conversations, we just spoke briefly before we hit record, and they tend to be exactly what we were talking about, or what you mentioned as talking about like the human and the divine. Because
Mhm.
I talk about like when human meets divine, or when like you braid the two together, when they become integrated, like life just gets completely different. And so that's my intention today is to explore with you. I want to be playful and curious about how that shows up for you and how that might show up for me and how it might support a listener.
All right, let's do it.
So I think I want to start with a question, which might be too broad, but I'm going to go there and we can zip it in or zoom it in if we need to. Have you always is a strong word, but it's the way I'm going to phrase it. Have you always had an awareness of like human and divine and been playful within them, or was it off for a while, quote unquote, and then sort of came to be for you?
It was definitely off for a while and came to be for me. So I believe that kids are just naturally spiritual. I
Yeah.
believe that they're very playful, right? Intuitive, very creative, which I believe the higher level of creativity is our part of our spiritual side that comes through us, comes through our human bodies and our human selves. And so you have that. I was raised Catholic. And so I was raised that I had a guardian angel always watching after me and to call upon that angel to support me anytime in need and always, to turn and pray to God. As I was little, I grew up at a campground going out to with my family on the weekends. And, in Minnesota, you can only go out during the summer months, the spring to fall. And we had access to 1,200 acres of woods, and I would just navigate out there and just kind of roam and all by myself, which most kids aren't going to do that. But I just always found such peace when I would do that and, just go off for like an hour, take a break from my friends. And so, looking back at it now, to me, that was a very spiritual practice to connect with nature and just be by myself and really just be. And I would kind of hear a lot, like downloads, right? Just get insight into things or feel into certain things, but not realizing it. And then I had lost my stepdad to cancer when I was 13. And so that was a time where I think through all the grief and just navigating teenage world and trying to stay in school, and trying to keep up with life, um, the spiritual side was active in the sense of, I'd have experience or phenomena of him after he passed, whether it was a conversation in my dreams, and then my niece had very similar dream that same night, and she was only 2 when he passed away, and here I was 13. So things like that, like, gosh, is this really a coincidence? And as you go on and you have more and more of these experiences, I came to be like, no, there's no way that this was a coincidence.
Yeah.
But at first, you find yourself the human side, my brain, my ego would second guess or just kind of brush it off. Yeah. So throughout my 20s, I had kind of lost it, but yet my friends would, bring their boyfriends to me and ask me to read them or like, tell me what you know about them. And I would just go with my gut and follow that. And question God in that time, just because how can you bring such devastating loss if God exists? Why does this happen? Why does so much pain happen to a person and families? That I saw and experienced my own family going through and becoming more aware of everything. The pain that people were feeling in society, and then yeah, coming out of that side, and as I developed more, then all of a sudden it was just like, whoa, this is all very spiritual. And just the intuition unlocked fully. I would say probably more into my 30s. It just started little glimpses of it here and there. Again, still thinking it's like the framework of psychology and understanding grief
Mm.
and I was working as a teacher, working primarily with students with emotional behavioral disorders. So thought it was just like making those interconnections of social emotional learning and human behavior, have a master's in human behavior. So to me, it was connecting all the dots of what school had taught me. But now looking back on it, I'm very clear in that it was more of like the intuition that popped in, that then I sought out the learning for it, right? The evidence behind it, the textbook knowledge to
Yeah.
confirm that.
The
And
human need for that, right?
yeah, right. The egoic need.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. So, and now I believe it's all, we have the both and always happening.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so do you still find yourself in nature feeling, I don't know, like is nature a catalyst for you in your divine downloads? That's what I heard you say, is like when you go out there, you kind of get those intuitive hits and have these understandings or like this, or is that like, I mean, yes, nature can be, but also it doesn't matter where you are.
It doesn't matter where I am now. I would say, depending on what it is, if I need grounding and peace, that's where I go for nature.
Yeah.
Solitude, solitude for me, like a deep, profound level of solitude really comes when I'm out in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
a moment where I feel like I would say that I get into more of my true essence of like curiosity and seeing the beauty and even just kind of the ugliness, right? Or to find so much beauty in the weeds that are growing alongside,
Yeah.
of the road, or
Yeah.
as watching the beauty that happens, that comes with change, right? That nature just naturally so does on its own, and we don't have to think about that, and how profound it comes back to my own life and life lessons and all of that.
That's such a, I love that connection. Well, because I just think human nature, at least in my experience, we don't super love change. Like change kind of freaks us out. And yet nature's doing it
Yes.
all the time and we love and appreciate all that, but we don't call it change, you know?
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
is. Even if
Yeah.
you
It's a
think about,
dying and rebirth
yeah,
all the time. Especially if
yeah,
you live in Minnesota and you go through the winter, it's so obvious that it's happening. Yeah.
right. But I just
Yeah.
think it's like I see nature as divine. You know, like it
Mhm.
feels very like no one's controlling it. It's happening innately. Like if the conditions are right and the alchemy is there, this is gonna happen. But
Yeah.
it happens consistently, but it's still change. And if the
Yeah.
alchemy gets quote unquote ruined, not in align with that particular plant, let's say, for example, then it won't happen. So I just think there's so many comparisons we can make with nature and humanity, but then there's also like that human side that wants to unbraid the human and divine and resist
Right.
that which is quote unquote natural. But I say that in a loving way, not in a guilty, shamey way. But I love that you started with nature.
Well, yeah, yeah, and just based on what you said, just the purification process that happens so naturally in nature. And I can think of this morning, I've taken a liking to succulent plants lately, and a friend of mine from another state had gifted me some to bring back into my home and grow. And he's got this beautiful succulent arrangements around his pool area, and I just have loved it. So he gifted me just a couple little leaves. You stick them in dirt and you see what happens. And so
Yeah.
for the past year, I've been nurturing these little leaves that, looked like they were half dead at one point in the winter time here. Even though they're sitting in pots and inside, but all of a sudden they have blossomed, and these succulents are getting huge. To a level of you don't see them that big here in Minnesota, to be honest with
That's
you.
cool.
And I was just out watering them, and I noticed underneath some of these bigger ones, there's the dead leaves, and I just pulled them right off, right? Because we know that it will strip away from the nutrients that the plant really needs and what it needs to take in if we keep the dead ones. And I also noticed that some of my flowers that I had planted this year, they're automatically deadheading themselves. So they're releasing the dead stuff, the what no longer serves them, right? and I think of a human, now all of a sudden my human self does not
Uh,
like to get rid of things
no.
as quickly, right? And so naturally and so gracefully. A plant does not think twice about what needs to go, nor do I think twice about pulling the dead flower off or the dead leaf, because I know that that's exactly what it needs in order to grow and thrive.
Yeah, it's actually
Be the very
supportive.
best. Yeah, be the very best that it can be. But why? Why don't I do this in my own life?
Yeah.
Why do I
Oh,
cling on
yeah.
to that dead leaf or that dead branch? And
Yeah. Let me make it perfectly clear. I'm not saying I'm any different. Like, I'm not saying, oh, no, I love all these, the process that is braiding or even just seeing the human and the divine. Because I think there is something about earlier, something you said, I can't even remember specifically what it was, but you said something that really led me to believe that you were in a moment where your highest self, your divine self, was holding space for your humanness, so to
yeah.
speak. And like that connection is it's such a beautiful gift when you can get there, but we
Mhm.
can't always get there. Sometimes it's
No.
just, oh, this is all about the human experience right now. Okay.
Well, okay. I have chills right now. I believe that we get there when we can recognize it's all about the human self right now. And we
Yeah.
can just do a simple request to God or whatever the higher power is for that person, right? Again, I was raised Catholic, taught to turn to my guardian angel, and I believe my guardian angel has a whole host of angels assigned by God, on behalf of me now today. That's not
Yeah.
how I was raised, but um, we can turn to that and actually ask to be brought to our higher self,
Hmm.
being brought out of the humanness, right? And when I get locked into my humanness, it usually means that I am actually lacking faith.
Yeah.
And that's what it always comes back to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just chewing on that because I mean it makes sense, right? Just even by default. Like if you're not asking or if you're not connecting, even if it's about connection, forget the asking part. If you're just connecting to trust, to lean into the faith, to understand and accept that there's a higher power or higher powers with you, whatever your beliefs are. That is a lack of something if you're not there, if you're not in a state where you can or even think to do that.
Mhm.
I think that intention is such a powerful piece of navigating, well, all of it. But because, like, here's the other thing, it's like we are here to have a human experience. I believe we're here to have a human experience. And sometimes when you really get understand the language of your soul, I guess I'll say it that way, and you get that divine peace. Sometimes it's easy to like bypass the human experience and just be like, oh no, I'm all divine for a hot second here. And
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
you really need the fusion of both. And that alchemy, to bring it back to that word, it can be really tricky. But I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that it's there. I feel so blessed to I don't know. I just like where logic meets magic, human meets divine, braid them together, integrate. Like it's all here for us. It's just how are we dancing? How are we dancing? Maybe that's just period. Question mark.
And do we have the awareness of it and where we're locked in, right? And whether or not I don't know, I use balance, the word balance very cautiously here because
Yeah.
I think that
That's
we
why I
think
like
that
alchemy.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
balance implies 50-50, and alchemy is like, oh,
yeah.
we don't know how many parts there are, but we know there's
Right.
a specific, maybe several specific examples that could take us somewhere like we're meant to go.
Hmm.
But it's never 50-50.
No, no, it never is. And yeah,
Uh-uh.
I think we even get locked in like when the human side, right, perseverates on a problem and it's the problem that really drains us and depletes us and all of that. We think that there's only one solution and that we'll
Yeah.
cling on to that one solution, right? But the reality is the solutions are infinite.
Yes.
They always are. And I mean, that's how people like Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, that's how they, even began. Carl Jung even created what they created, right? To lead the human
Yeah.
human way, right? But
I
they
think the
weren't,
fact, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, they were always willing to explore
Yeah.
and consider something else.
Yeah. And I think when I landed in the place of really not just knowing and understanding, but actually accepting that there actually are infinite possibilities. When I landed in that place where I understand that and like I get it, that I feel like the transition to getting to that place was really messy for me because I was resistant. I prefer a yes, no, thank you. Do you know what I mean?
It feels so
But
much
no,
safer.
well, yeah, and it's so much easier because it's just like, oh, here's my yes, I'll go do that thing. Here's my no, I won't do that thing, or maybe I'll risk it and see what happens. But like, it's my choice, and there's only two, and that's so much less overwhelming than the possibility that they're infinite. But now that I've landed in a place where I mean, I've experienced it. I've experienced where my human wanted one thing, and then divine said, no, this is better. I don't love that word, but this is actually for you in a new
Yeah.
and different way that your human couldn't even have dreamed. And it is better in my frame, in my human language. And so once that happened enough times, right, I was like, oh, this yes, no shit is like, no, thank you. But this infinite possibilities is like, well, no matter which way I go, I'm going to learn something, A, and B, there's blessings on all throughout all of it. It's, I don't know. But I think it's such a hard thing. And I think sometimes just I guess I'm going to say clients, but like people who come, whether it be for a spiritual or a, mentorship or, tarot or Reiki or any of those things, they're looking for definitive answers. I'm like, but what if everything's infinite? What if there isn't a definitive answer? Like I might not be the practitioner for you if you're looking for me to tell you what it is, because I don't know and neither do you. But there's
Right.
not an it, there's a them or
Yeah.
a many plethora.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. There's so much danger in locking into only one and a definite answer, right? If I like the movie Butterfly Effect, I don't like the darkness that's behind Butterfly Effect, but if you've seen it, it's just one little small thing changes and the entire
Yeah.
ending changes, right? It alters everything. And I do believe that we are operating in that profound of a system and that delicate and gentle,
Yeah.
system that if one thing does change, everything changes. And I also believe, though, that no matter what path I take, it will get me to my higher self.
Yeah. Or at least it has the potential to.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends
Yep.
on if you choose it or not, right? Or if
Yeah,
you
that's
I mean, I don't that sounds a little guilty shamey and I hate that. Like that's not where I'm going with that. I just mean like sometimes we do close off. We actually demand a yes, no. We say there's only one and we believe it in all of our being. And whether
mhm.
that's fear or programming or whatever reason it might be that exists. And I think that free will thing is I don't know. When I first started my journey, I feel like it was overwhelming for me and just took me down. I was like frozen in like the just too many choices. But now that I don't know, I've just landed in I have a different relationship with it now. And now I just see it as opportunity and like we'll see and okay with the unknown. And I'm not saying I'm always good and like not fearful or whatever, but I
Yeah.
also think just there's something about that like there's so many choices and there's so many
Right.
possibilities. And if I believe I'm divinely guided and I have a whole divine counsel, then who am I to like get so stuck in my humanness that I can't take a step toward something that I don't fully understand yet? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's such a fascinating thing.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so I do believe that there's the paradox playing out with it as well. So if I look at my bank account, it's legit, whatever the numbers are, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's in some sense, there might be some waiting to balance out for that day or, withdrawn, but usually with the digital world, it's always just exact as it is. That's a very black and white response.
Yeah.
But how I generate that money or what's behind that money could be infinite, right? The
Right.
possibilities in order for me to generate more or for me to lose it, because that is also there.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes we have to acknowledge that there are some things that are just very black and white. If we look at the law and but that's the human side operating, right?
Yeah.
The law is the law and it's set. And yet you look around everywhere and people are finding the loopholes of the law. And
Yes.
that's showing you that there are more possibilities than what it states in black and white language. I think that just offers us that the possibilities behind that really are infinite.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I want to make really clear is that like I'm not saying that we're walking on this fluid foundation that doesn't feel stable and that everything is, unknown and whatever. I'm not claiming that at all, but I do find it fascinating that when we can lean into, yes, there's some things that we're really comfortable with that we kind of know if A, then B, and that's how the
Mhm.
human world works. But also there's miracles and there's possibilities and I mean, gosh, sometimes it's just one simple prayer or one simple thought or one simple perspective shift that can, I mean, create a new version of your free will choices that change everything.
Oh, for sure. I mean, just even one slight conversation, I shouldn't say slight, one meaningful conversation with a person can
Yeah.
completely change the direction of maybe a major life decision that I was going to decide this, and instead I chose something else just because of how profound that conversation was.
Yeah.
It's never definite, and there's always the possibilities. There's always a door that will open possibilities available to us.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay, so I have a question that is related, but a little bit shifting gears. Are you cool with that?
Oh, for sure.
Because I think it would be interesting and perhaps helpful to talk about, like, how do you know which voice it is? Right? Like,
Mm.
how do you know it's your divine download versus your human ego or just humanness, human experience, that that's giving you the vibes, so to speak.
That's a great question. And sometimes that's really hard to know.
Yeah.
Well, for one, I think it becomes a little bit easier when, um, y- so if I'm seeking an answer, I usually will do that through prayer,
Hmm.
and asking God to help me see it through God's eyes and the way that in which God would intend for my life. And sometimes I have to go back and say, I'm still not getting it. I'm still not hearing anything. And maybe that's intentional. Like that's part of my prayer,
Yeah.
my conversation with God. And then I will go on and there are times when I will request for it to be made so obvious I can't ignore it. Um,
Mm.
then usually it'll be in a way that I would never even think of to do, and really
Yeah.
challenges my there's times where situations have come up or answers that come through for me that challenge my entire being, right? Especially my level of safety.
Oh.
And what's required there is faith, the leap of faith, right? To just go ahead and do that. And that is more of that's what God has intended for me.
Yeah, I
Then,
think, do
yeah.
you think there's a step before the leap of faith? Because I think in order to
Oh
be able to
yeah.
take the leap of faith, you have to have the confidence that you're listening to the right part. Right.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you had asked, like, I was going to say there's then the little things in life. How do I know if it's a download or if it's just the human self? It's usually where I'm going to feel it in my body,
Yeah.
that it comes through. It's still somewhat of a language for me, or like sometimes it's just this inner knowing, right? The inner
Hmm.
knowing that doesn't have a language, but it just drives me towards something, pulls me towards a particular response that I know. I also look at the fruits of if I do this, what are the potential fruits of what's coming of that? That's how I know it's more divine. Is it creating love? Is it creating growth? Is it creating opportunities for oneness? Does it open the door to parts of joy, higher level of faith, bringing me closer to God? To me, those are all the divine. If it's locked in more my brain and I seem like I can explain things, that's how I feel like it's more me and my ego side, or what I've learned through the human self.
That's an interesting distinction. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody explain it exactly like that. The whole, like, if I can explain it. Huh.
Yeah.
You know, because I've heard people say, well, if I'm, attached to it or thinking about it a lot or trying to understand it or like that kind of stuff. But the way you just said that was so simple and something like really great to ponder. Like if you're listening and you don't know what your clairs are, like how you receive your intuitive guidance, or if you don't know like what your state feels like when you're praying versus when you're like in that craving, human thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and
cool.
it's really hard. I think that sometimes, I mean, if are you familiar with Saint Teresa of Avila, the interior castle? I'm sure I've talked about.
I do
Um,
feel like you've talked about it, but I'm not super familiar. No.
okay, so the interior castle is basically the journey in which the soul can go through in life. And she talks a lot about how, in her work, she saw how God would place a particular person or situation in a person's life in order for their soul to further develop and go along to their human self develops, into a more spiritual self, comes closer to God. Um, but in those experiences, right, there's going to be a lot of human explanation for that.
Yeah.
It might be, financial devastation. It might be the loss of materialistic things, right? To recognize so that we're brought upon that direction or that journey to recognize that it's never really the things that we need. That is not our true essence. And if you look at, like, the journey of the apostles, with Jesus, when Jesus said, get rid of everything, sell everything, and come along with me. Because you need nothing in order to receive everything and to have everything.
Yeah.
And,
I
and
just
some,
go
yeah.
ahead.
And some of those teachings are all about that. Like, we as humans, we get so locked into the materialistic things, the things that we can feel, the things that we can see, the things that we can smell, all of that. And the spiritual journey is then to release all of that. And then you,
Yeah. Yeah,
except for
I
like
was
you need to eat and things, some basics,
sure.
but
Yeah, you got to take
yeah,
care of your human vessel. I mean, that's a thing
yeah,
too, right? Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yep,
like the soul is, yeah, needs the human vessel for this experience until it goes on to the next thing, right?
right.
Um, but I just think about like when you were talking about all those things, and I do not have the capacity right now to really truly connect the dots. If it was a different day, maybe, but I'm just thinking
That's
about
okay.
the various studies that I've done, like my yoga teacher training, or even like a chat I had on a tour with a monk in Thailand of just like things that they say that like they're the same things you're talking about in Catholicism or Christianity. It's different words to
Yeah.
explain the same thing. And I actually like love that. Because I just want to make it clear to our listeners, like I'm not attached to or like we're not claiming that you have to believe it exactly in this way with exactly this
No.
language. We're just like using the language that's comfortable for us because there's a million different ways you can say it and a million different ways you can have that faith, and it doesn't have to be exactly how we're defining it. Because I don't know. I feel like I grew up in a house where it was very much defined and there it was very rigid. And I think that
Mm.
and I leaned into that hard. And it then when I started sort of opening to other possibilities or just ways of thinking about it, I'm not even saying I completely veered all the way off, you know, my faith or anything like that. I'm just saying I was so restricted that I had so much fear.
Hmm.
And if I would have kept in that resistance and that fear place, I wouldn't be living my purpose right now. And I believe without a doubt that I'm living my purpose, without a doubt. And I have quote unquote more, I have the ability, maybe I'll say it, maybe this is the best way to say it. I have the ability to actually lean into my faith versus just go through the motion. And so my whole life has changed because of that one quote unquote little thing, but it was a huge thing for me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that you mentioned though how we're not trying to push one particular way or one particular practice at all, and how this language changes across like religious constructs or
Hmm.
spiritual constructs, however you want to frame it, because I'm not locked in. Catholic is what my first framework was
Yeah.
for, religion is different than spirituality, but religion is the tool to, I think, religion is the tool to teach people, the human self, to be more spiritual and connect with their higher selves, their spirituality. And there are
Yeah.
very many different tools and languages around that. Yeah, and I'm not locked into one either.
Yeah, I know that. And that's why I don't know. Allison, I just had that. It was a download. It's like, hey, just mention that like we're using words that are comfortable to us, but you can insert your own words, like whatever
Yeah.
that looks like for you. Because I think religion can be, you know, a way to get us to our spirituality, but like for me, it was also a block to it for a long
Ah,
time. So I just think there's a
oh
million
yeah.
ways, to climb the mountain, so to speak. But also I think the human experience is such that there's only so many different ways we can experience this thing we call life.
Mhm.
Um, and we're more similar than we might, consider, I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you look at the laws of spirituality, right, they're pretty universal.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think, the thing I found most fascinating. Like,
Hmm.
when I sort of shifted into like, okay, well, I just want to learn more. And it wasn't even necessarily about, well, it definitely wasn't about religion. It was more about, I was learning all these living traditions. There was Thai massage, there was Reiki, there was yoga, there was, even Zentangle. I mean, on some level, they all brought me to my own inner like sanctuary, so to speak. But I just remember thinking there's so many similarities. They're just using different words, but this isn't different than what I learned growing up. And this isn't different than what I learned from my friend's house and what they studied. And I don't know, I just find it all so fascinating.
Yeah, it is very fascinating. And I think again, it just comes back to opening the door of the dimensions of life that are probably, are beyond the human experience, our everyday experience,
Yeah.
and learning how to integrate that into our human world, which is really hard to do. It's not an easy practice at all, which I mean you had talked about at the beginning of our talk on this.
Yeah. It's funny because when you said that, I was like, yeah, and that's a challenge. There is nothing easy about it. I mean, there are pockets of ease, but I feel like those pockets of ease for me didn't come until well into my journey of, I mean, there was so many moving parts for me, and I would guess, I guess, that
Mhm.
this is the way it goes for most humans. I mean, I had my human physical healing journey, and then I had my divine spiritual healing journey, and then I had sort of like a combination of the two. I don't know, it just felt like it was all happening at once, and for a very long time, I was just confused, I think. Confused and wounded. Um,
Yeah.
but but
Totally.
but I feel like, I mean, isn't that it? Isn't that the journey of transformation and healing and self-awareness and empowerment and self-trust and worth and all of those things? I mean, it's complicated.
It is complicated, and I don't know. I don't know if it has to be, but it seems like it goes hand in hand that you will be lost. You will get really messy. You will be absolutely confused in order to find yourself and find your way. Um, and you have to have one without the other, or you have to have one brings the other, right? You can't
Yeah.
have one without the other. Um, but I know that people, there's certain levels to this too, because there are certain things, right? Like the grief of losing a parent that meant a lot to me and my family
Yeah.
system. Those of us that grieved it, we healed and we're emotionally, I would say, healthier or more mature. Now, today, those that stuffed it behind or just stuffed it in and chose things such as going out and partying or things like that in order to deal with it, they never fully dealt with that. And it
Hmm.
caused potentially, I mean, along with other things, but it caused some lifelong consequences or consequences. I don't want to say lifelong,
Until, right?
consequences for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some time. It's just like too, like if you ignore a money problem and you try to just dismiss it, all that it's going to eventually catch up with you.
Yeah, you
Um,
can't just wait it out and wait for it to change. Like, you have to
yeah,
actively make choices to make it change.
yeah, faith alone isn't going to do anything. Like
Yeah.
you have to actually,
We're
you have to use your
co-creators,
human body
Shyla.
to take action. I mean, I wish it were so easy, right? I could just create this
Well, and I
this
think
place
that's
for
the
myself.
duality of human and divine too, because it's like my reality is like now that I've, a couple decades into my healing, I mean, I can simplify it. I do know
Yeah.
how. I mean, I'm writing a book about that, but also it's never going to feel simple when you're in it, ever. But to
No.
have the structure and the support and like scaffolding and like the ways to like, well, if you're willing to try this could potentially be helpful for you. And if you're willing to try that, that might actually, move things along at a rapid pace, but maybe that's not your pace. And like the amount of discernment that you have to have. And I think, I don't know, the download I'm getting is just like, I think I started in a place where I was like, I just want someone to tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the reality is it's never going to work that way.
No, because it's such an individual journey. Even
Yes.
discernment and your connection with, God or whatever your source is, it's all very individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And again, there's some universal experiences, some universal laws at play, but how each one experiences it, communicates, receives the download, all of that, that's a highly individual experience. And so I think that's important because it brings us to, there's going to be a lot of ambiguity with it. And yet it's important to connect with people that have experience with a lot of it, right? A lot of different forms of it, or continue to believe in yourself and your own experience, and also seek out, some spiritual guidance with that. It's not a journey to do alone, and yet it can feel very lonely at the time. Because the average person isn't always going to understand the deeply profound spiritual experiences.
Oh, for sure. I
They're not
think,
going to receive it that the
and I
same.
think it's such a duality and an oxymoron and a conundrum, even that like we're literally not meant to do this alone, and yet
Mm.
we're the only one who can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that is such a conundrum because it can
For-
feel really lonely because you do have this understanding that like, oh, I'm the only one who can make this decision. I'm the only one who can actually do this work. I'm the only one. I'm the only one. I'm the only one. I say that not from a selfish ego way, but from a, like a holy shit, I don't want to do all this. This is terrifying. And I certainly don't want to do it alone. But then the flip side of that is you're divinely guided, you're never alone, you have earth angels, you have like all these, moving parts and variables in our humanness that do support our journey. But if you're not
Mhm.
willing to do it for yourself, no one else can ever do it for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it is really important to find communities of
Yeah.
people and be careful of leaders that say it's just one way,
Oh, 100%.
or that it's not possible. You want the leaders that's going to encourage exploration, right? And yet let you know what boundaries to be aware of, right? And what you can access of your own free will, and what you can exercise. I think finding communities that have been through this journey and been through the messiness of it, and people that have gone through, you think of like detachment was one of the toughest things for me.
Oh my gosh.
And probably because I had an abandonment wound
Yep.
from, losing my stepdad the way that I did, or even like the least resistance, the law of least resistance was really tough for me at one point, because I was raised, in my 20s that I should, believe in the grind. And if I grind, it'll happen. If I push, it'll happen, all of that, until I get into like my 30s and 40s and I realize, oh my gosh, all this effort that I'm spending and, you know, creating and all of that, it's being pushed back at me. It's no longer happening fast anymore.
Yeah.
It's actually like it's creating more problems, right? And so the more that I backed off of it and led with faith, but still took action, but not from an egoic sense, it was more from a graceful sense. The next thing I knew is, holy cow, goals were being achieved so much faster than I even thought was possible, to the point where it kind
Hmm.
of scared me. It
Yeah.
got me
You're
to
like,
like,
wait.
whoa, 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 I'm not quite ready for this, like now I'm developing a whole new level of prayer to God. Like, okay, let's slow this down a little bit. But if it comes to you, it means that you are ready. And it took me a while to really get into a graceful flow with that. Um,
Yes, I don't know that I 100% think that when it or if it comes to you, it means you're ready. Sometimes if it comes to you, it's like if you're actively in the process of learning how to discern for yourself, sometimes it's like coming you to give you an opportunity to actually discern if you're ready or not.
yeah, yeah, I could see that. I also think that just because you're ready doesn't mean you're 100% all in and 100% ready. It might be ready for growth. You're ready
Well, I
for the
also
next
don't
step.
believe you have to be ready. I believe
And
most
you
of the
don't,
time we're not.
yeah, that has happened to me several
I
times
mean,
in life.
spiritually ready and human ready are different things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yep.
amazing. It's so funny
Yeah.
you were talking about grinding, and I had a healing session once. I even saying that with those words sometimes are crazy, but it was like I was for myself doing some healing, and I went to a practitioner who did something different that I'd never done before, and it was really cool. But he said a couple things, and I've combined them, and I heard it in my head when you said it, and so I'm just going to share it.
Yeah.
He said, "Why grind when you can flow?" That was one of the things he said, and then the other
Oh,
thing
I
he
love it.
said is if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And they go beautifully together. It's like, why grind when you can flow? If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Yeah, yeah. So the I like that if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. One thing I have found though is sometimes my human self gets caught up in that one.
Yeah.
My ego likes that one sometimes
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
when
yeah.
it's when it's there to like, protect me or
Die
help
on a
me feel
hill.
safe. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 So
Yeah, 100%. Both of those for me can be a little too human-y. But when I take them in like their purest, like at my soul level language and just unpack it, it's like I hear it in my head as a download when I'm grinding too hard. It's like, what are you doing? You're not, you're just in your ego right now. There's nothing that you're doing that's flow.
yeah.
Take a step, pause. And why are
Yeah.
you doing this thing if it's a hell no? I don't believe everything has to be 100% hell yes. Like, I think that's pretty an unrealistic expectation, actually. But I think
Right.
if it's a hell no, what the heck am I doing it for then? You know?
Right. 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 Well, and sometimes yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I
I'm
wish
just
that isn't
thinking of
even
like
part of
the
that phrase.
day-to-day life
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's sometimes, I don't want to do things maybe for family or to help things out. To be quite, I'm just going to be very honest with you. Like my ego will start yapping in my mind and like, oh, I got to go do this again or I got to go to another sporting event again. It's kind of like going to the gym. I got to go to the gym again. I don't absolutely want to do that. you know?
Yeah.
And then once I get there, or what's the bigger thing there? What's the bigger value? There is me connecting with family and deep connecting, and my kids always knowing that I'm there. So then
Yeah.
that brings me to the hell yes, right? But at one moment, in a moment of that situation, I'm a hell no, like, or just dreading helping, or even like a
Yeah.
father. My father's declining right now with his needs and his independence in life, and he's still doing really well considering. But I have to step in and help with things more than what we've ever had in life, and so the roles are changing a little bit. And so, yeah, there's some disruption there for me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'll leave and I'll be like, oh, and I have to sometimes intentionally say it. I'm so glad I got to support him with this. I'm so glad that I got this opportunity to have that time with him.
Yeah.
Because
And I think
what
you're
if
right.
it were his last day?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a slippery slope for me. Like to think in that way is a slippery slope for me. But I love the things that you're saying are so important to like address language and your thoughts and like they're there for you to use your discernment. Like sometimes you getting that angst of going to do something is because it's not actually in your integrity to go do the thing. And other
Yeah.
times it's like, well, hang on, do I need to pause and like am I seeing the whole picture or is my perspective just hyper focused on victimhood, let's say? And I
Right.
actually am meant to do this. You know what I mean? And so I just think it's such a slippery slope, but what I heard in what you were saying is like you hear that language and you use your discernment and then you make the highest choice for the best and highest good, to your capability on any given day. Some days we don't get that right. Some days
Yeah.
they're harder than others, so to speak. And I'm not in right and wrong person. I'm more of like a let's just, I don't like the guilty, shamey words because those used to eat away at me. So I'm
hmm
really careful about how I use my language, especially with myself, also with others, just because you never know where they're coming from. But I just think it's so easy to get into that, go into those old patterns. Like for me, I can go into yep, I'm going to overgive at the expense of myself. And it's like, no, no, I'm going to dance the line between regret and resentment and figure out where I land.
Yeah. Yeah, that level of awareness is so important, especially
Yeah.
before you commit, right? And even once you do commit, it's still okay to say no.
Yeah.
It's still okay to renegotiate. And I was not necessarily raised like that. I
Oh, yeah.
remember, I mean, my grandpa, he didn't ever want to sign a contract. He shook a hand with a verbal agreement, and that's exactly what you adhered to. And yet, as our life is ever changing, and especially with today's society, that things are ever changing, more
Yeah.
so than ever. And what we're locked in to believe and what our values are, those should be renegotiated. Those should be assessed to see if it still aligns with who you are today and where everything falls and how it falls, right? You're taking
Yeah.
care of a sick parent, you may not have the time that you used to have to meet up with friends, and go meet them for coffee or things like that. You might not have the ability to make it to every single game, that your kids have, or yeah, whatever it is. There's other things that have to
Yeah.
be compromised.
Yeah, capacity changes as life changes. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I never used to honor my capacity. I just did whatever, I did all the things as best I could. And that was
Yeah.
not very good. It was not a good way to live.
Well, yeah, I do it too. I still do it. Even having this level of awareness doesn't mean that life is going to magically change, right? Um, I I grew up, my parents, and I have great relationship with both of my biological parents and very healthy. Um, but I grew up, they didn't really attend my sporting events. And so, what do I do now as a mom? I exhaust myself attending almost every single one I can because I never want my kids to feel the way that I felt for some. And right, what is that? That's my own internal world, my own projection, placing that on to or assuming my kids are going to have that wound
Right.
if I don't show up, that same
Yeah.
wound that I had. And the reality isn't true at all. And so I get to honor that within myself, right? And I honor that with my kids too. Look, if I'm really busy tonight, are you okay if I don't come to the sporting game? And if they say, yep, I'm totally fine with that, I used to second guess myself. I no longer allow that anymore. I'm just like, yep, then it's fine. I mean, the reality is I make it to 95% of their
Yeah.
games.
Well, and I think
Um,
we all do that. We all have our wounds and our projections, and I think sometimes we notice them and sometimes we don't. And we show up from, look, our entire truth in the current moment, right? Whatever
mhm.
that looks like. And sometimes there's, well, not even sometimes, often, I have a hard time with always and never, but often there are wounds in there that we haven't even seen yet.
Oh
They're just,
yeah.
and we're just showing up and in what we know right now. And I don't know. I think we can be so hard on ourselves. And I love what you just said about like, I recognize it. I recognize what that is. And now I'm, navigating it and renegotiating it in a way that works for me. And the goal is for them too, right? I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And just as I ask, for assistance and helping me see others through the eyes of the divine, I have started asking for that assistance to be able to see myself that way as
Yeah.
well. And I think it's a great question for all of us to ask. Are you giving yourself the level of grace that you will extend to others?
Yeah.
Are you giving yourself the level of compassion that you extend to others? Are you serving yourself at the level in which you will serve others? And not in a selfish way, of course, but we serve ourselves and fill ourselves up so that we can continue to fill other people up. And not completely deplete ourselves, like you had said, compromise who you truly are in order just to be accepted or liked, or it's because it's the thing to do. Um, it's truly, what's in alignment with your true inner essence. So just because you don't want to do it, if it is aligned with your true inner essence, then there probably is a spiritual place there to do that service, right? To be of a servant person. And I believe that we will always receive far more than we ever give on the back end. I just
Mm.
haven't seen it any other way.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
don't do it for that expectation either.
Right. Yeah. Right. Slippery slope. No, that's beautiful. This feels like such a great place to wrap up. It just feels like one big mic drop. Like that's such a lovely intention to land on at the end of the podcast.
Oh,
To
thank you.
consider all of those things that you just said. That just feels, yeah. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to trust
Yeah,
this. And
me too.
well, okay, I will say this. Anyone listening, take what you need and leave the rest.
Oh, yes. That's yes. I hope that's always a thing that people know when they listen to any podcast or go to any workshop, do anything. I think that's the best way to receive life. But even that, if it doesn't resonate with you, leave it alone, not yours, and
Yeah.
not mine to put onto you.
And it's okay. Right.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you
Right.
so much, Shyla. This is such a great conversation. Will you tell me, do you have a website that people can find you on? I just want it to be in the audio part as well. I'll put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, thank you. You can find me on innermatter.net. If you just go there, and if you want to speak with me directly, just fill out a contact form. Otherwise, I'm on various levels of or platforms, sorry, of social media. Facebook, LinkedIn are my two main ones that I'm usually on. So anyone can send me a message or follow me on those places as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Shyla.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This was such a great conversation. I feel like every time we get together, I could just continue going as well
It's
and just dive in deeper, explore, and get curious with it all.